Okay, this is attempt 5 to record this video. I've had a series of unfortunate events every time. So let's try this again. Antman, the Wasp, Quantumania. Overall thoughts? It's a weak movie. One of the weakest in the MCU, definitely, and weaker than a lot of what came out in Phase 4. This is a pretty bad start to Phase 5, and if this is going to be the tone, it's not going to be much better than Phase 4 was. Now, going forward, I will be mentioning points in the order in which I wrote them during the movie. I kind of wrote down some things that I just want to talk about. Some are positives, some are negatives, and some will just be general observations. Overall, in terms of my thoughts on the film, as I've mentioned, I think it's a weak movie. I think Jonathan Majors does a great job as Kang. Just like Christian Bale did in Thor Love and Thunder, but it was not enough to save the movie. So going forward, overall, I also feel like the movie has too many characters and once again introduces an unnecessary new environment that we just do not need. This universe is convoluted enough as it is. We need to deal with the characters that currently exist. So that is all I'm going into without spoilers. From this point onwards, I'll be assuming you've either seen the movie or do not care. Although, to be honest, the way in which I'm going to mention these points, it really only works if you've seen the movie. If you haven't seen it, then this isn't going to be of much value. I'm not going over like a plot summary or something. The first point is what I've already mentioned, another secret society, and this time a whole universe. I just wish they would stop doing this. I wish somebody at the top would kind of put their foot down and say, no more new universes, no new characters. And I don't mean new characters like individual characters. I mean like civilizations or factions. Every single one of those movies, basically, it's like all the writers just want to introduce a new villain, pick someone from the comics and introduce that race or that society in every movie that they do. It's really, really getting old. I wish someone would put their foot down and say, no more. Everyone has to work within the established law, at least for the next like phase or something. And then we can introduce like a new society for phase 6. I think that would be better. Casey Lang was good in concept, not in implementation. We'll get back to her. I think the idea of the reason I like her presence is personally, this is my own wish list item. I want a young Avengers movie. And at the moment, I think we have enough people. There's Kamala Khan, Casey, there is Kate Bishop, there is Riri Williams, unfortunately. There is also... who am I forgetting? I feel like I've forgotten one of them. They'll come back to me later. But we now have enough of these characters to have like a young Avengers thing where they go off on their own story. I wish that would be done. I just want them to have, and hopefully it's something smaller stakes. I don't want them to also have to save a universe. Like I'm getting really sick of that kind of story. I want something lower stakes, something that wouldn't warrant the Avengers' presence, and then they have to deal with it because it's something smaller. There is a constant sidelining of the main characters in this story. I mean, Antman and the Wasp. The movie decides to go for an ensemble thing. It brings along Janet Van Dyne, it brings along Hank Pym, brings along Casey Lang, introduces a whole new society of people that are freedom fighters against Kang's oppressive regime. There is MODOK as a secondary villain. It's just too many characters, honestly, and they do not get nearly enough development. In fact, in order to cheat this, they basically make the original villain from the first the first Ant-Man movie, they make that guy MODOK this time, just to at least give MODOK an easy backstory so that they don't also have to create a new backstory for this guy. That's the only justification I can see for having this character become MODOK this time, as opposed to previously being Yellow Jacket. So I think that was basically at least a way of cheating. That's one less character you have to explain. But all the others don't get enough development either. Most of it is spared for, I guess, Janet and Kang, who are also not... It's not that deep. Kang, we still have quite a bit to learn. By the way, I don't expect them to explain Kang's motives very well. I think what we got in the ambiguous stuff that was said in Loki and the little that's said here might be all of it. I don't think they'll be going that deeper into it. That it's not necessary, but it would be nice to get to know a little bit of the life that he lived. He mentions things like, you have no idea what I've lost. And I wish they would eventually, because he's a character that's meant to be recurring, I hope eventually they get into all that kind of stuff. I think that would be interesting. It takes about 24 minutes in this movie before they unleash the unfunny, terrible, cringy Marvel humor. It's a scene that has a guy that can read minds and a character that asks about holes. These freedom fighter characters, it is absolutely terrible. I hated it so much. I wished I could fast forward or skip ahead, but unfortunately, that was not an option. It was just so terrible. I just wish they would. I don't know if it's because the writers have just gotten weaker in quality, but this stuff is just not as funny as it used to be. It's mostly irritating now. Alright, let's talk about Kang now. I do not understand how Kang is supposed to be a villain for the Avengers. His power set just doesn't work. I had a discussion about this with my cousin a few weeks ago or months ago. I think it was somewhere in January, where I wanted to play Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 in order to get a rough idea in a visual format what Kang can do. I've not read any of the comics where he is, and I just wanted to see what he does. And he has this tech that's kind of futuristic, but this is nonsense. This guy cannot fight the Avengers. Like, he can fight one or two of them or just specific members individually, but if they come at him as a group, he has no chance whatsoever. All his abilities are slow, or his moves are slow and are very limited, and he can only do like one at a time. He doesn't have like an Infinity Gauntlet level of ability. I mean, are they going to give him something that accelerates his abilities like the Infinity Gauntlet did for Thanos? Because without that kind of advantage, I have no idea how he's supposed to defeat or even stand up against the Avengers. Let's leave alone the Avengers we already know, like Thor. There's actually a point in the movie where it insinuates that he killed Thor, and I was just rolling my eyes. I was like, get the hell out of here. How would he pull that off? Like, was Thor unaware that he's coming for him? There is a point at which he gets defeated by a bunch of ants that just run at his shield and then overpower it and then destroy his suit. That's how the majority of his abilities are taken out in this story. Ants, a bunch of ants. He would never stand a chance against, for example, the Marvels, the upcoming movie, if it was Monica Rambeau, Carol Danvers, and Kamala Khan. Even without Kamala Khan, just the other two would be enough to stop this guy. He can't take them all. They move too fast and they hit too hard. Like, what exactly is he supposed to do against them? I don't know. I'm just not buying his initial power set. I feel like he looks like he has the same abilities as like Iron Man. Not regular Iron Man. I mean, like one of the more high-end versions of his suits, like Extremis, and I think it's called Endosim, and maybe like God Killer. One of those levels of the Iron Man armor. But either way, that kind of thing can't fight like Thor or someone of that level like Carol Danvers. So I don't know how this guy is supposed to be a genuine threat to the Avengers. Unless he fights against like the weaker, more physically powered Avengers, which could be an interesting movie. I think if they made an Avengers movie where they don't bring the overpowered members like the Hulk and just deal with the lower, the weaker Avengers and have them fight a villain, I think that could be cool. That could definitely work. What else do I have to say about Kang? The setup for Kang is lame. The characters refer to him as him for just way too long. They drag that on beyond where it makes logical sense. I was actually starting to get angry because I was like, why is nobody asking who you're talking about? They keep saying him in order to drag out the reveal for us, the viewers. But in universe, it makes no sense for everybody who's listening to the story to just keep playing along with this. They should ask them to emphasize who exactly are you talking about so that we move forward. That doesn't happen. There is a lot of exposition in the movie. Bad exposition. There's a point at which Hank Pym is talking about ants. And he just goes on and on. They even do a flashback to a scene we saw where he touches his ear and talks about like signals he's receiving from ants. And it's almost like, I'm like, do they think the people watching this movie are not paying attention? This movie is quite short, actually. I don't understand why they needed to flash that back. I mean, the movie really highlighted it the first time it happened. And then they just do a whole exposition thing. And then there's a line where he mentions socialism. It's just weird. There's just too much exposition, especially from Hank Pym and then Janet Van Dyne. There's nothing wrong with exposition, but there's a way to do it that's good and there's a way to do it that's bad. And in my opinion, this was bad. Moving on, I want to try and wrap this up. I think I'm already going to beyond the time that I was hoping to use this. There's a weird scene transition at some point, and there's a number of moments like this, whereby Kang moves Janet into a portal. He walks with her, and then in the next scene, he's seated on a throne and she's brought to him. I was like, what the hell was that about? He was already leading her by the arm. How did they get separated such that now they're bringing her to him? Did he just hand her off to his henchmen and then say, let me go sit on the throne, and then dramatically bring her into the room? He doesn't seem like he has meetings or anything, so whatever. That's one of the things I mentioned. It's just an observation. Another observation is there's like 3 or 4 scenes in this movie where someone's moving like a prisoner, like they are being moved, like prisoner transport, and then they kind of like fight against their captors and like hit one person in the knee or the leg and then pull some kind of weapon or object off the second guard and kind of like knock them around. It's really, really, really bad. It's almost borders on parody by the 3rd or 4th time it's happening. The last one is towards the end, and that's the one that woke me up to it, and I was like, what the hell is going on? Why have we had so many of these scenes in this movie where somebody like is being transported by 2 guards and then kind of like does somewhere and tries to escape? It's done way too much in this movie. MODOK's CGI is terrible, even though the CGI of the movie overall is pretty good. I don't know how they went with that effect. I don't know why it ended up looking like that, but it looks pretty terrible. MODOK is finally defeated by Casey at the end. I guess they wanted to give her some kind of victory, but the scene, the dialogue that they have once he's defeated is so cringe-inducing. I almost was biting my teeth. She tells him apparently not to be a dick, and then he says, look at me, I'm a total dick. And then she says, it's never too late to stop being a dick. And then he turns against Kang, and then later runs towards Kang when the ants are fighting him, and then goes, I'm not a dick. I just don't know what happened. It feels like the writing quality of the MCU just fell off a cliff. This is so unfunny. It's so bad. It's actually unbelievable how bad that line is in the movie. I was just, and then after he dies, they try to give him like a redemption, like death scene, which first of all is stupid enough in and of itself, because this character, first of all, looks incredibly ridiculous, was a villain from the first moment we met him. He's done one good thing in the entire time we've known him, and he's getting like a redemption death scene. And then, as if that's not bad enough, they also overthrow that scene with, again, the same unfunny humor that has been going on for a good part of the movie, and it just completely ruins the whole thing. I mean, the scene never had a chance, but it gets ruined even further after that. I didn't like that either. So, finally, after all of the battles are done, Antman and Wasp finally get to fight Kang themselves, which is also weird because Antman just gets his ass whooped until the Wasp comes at the end and then cleans up, which I guess is how their dynamic has always worked in these movies. She seems to be the more combat capable person because she had years of training, so it makes sense that she would be the one with the ability to win the fight. Also, she has long range weapons, which are very strong against Kang, because trying to fight him at close range seems to be a bad idea. I hope they play around with that idea in the future, in the versions that we see of him. The best thing about the movie is that it's short. I think it's like an hour or something like that, shorter than Wakanda Forever, which is such a relief. That movie was just too long. So this is, I feel, for a movie that's this week, it's definitely good that it's not nearly as long as the previous movies. So that's the positive thing I have to say at the end. If you've made it this far, thanks for listening, and that's my thoughts.